Hello, my friends. My name is Silas Crawford, and if there is an old padlock hanging from a nail in your garage, buried under bolts in a coffee can, or sitting without a key in a farm toolbox, do not assume it is worthless hardware. Most old padlocks are not expensive. A common one may bring $15, $20, or $40, but the right railroad lock, express company lock, story lock, rare combination lock, or hand-finished brass example can move into the hundreds or even thousands. The difference comes from the maker, the mechanism, the material, the historical provenance, the condition, and the rarity of the exact piece. Today, we are counting down 10 old padlocks that collectors actually care about, and I'm going to show you how to spot them before somebody sells one for scrap money. Before we start, tell me where you are watching from and whether your family has a box of old locks with no keys. Pennsylvania, Nebraska, Texas, California, England, it does not matter. And stay with me to number 3 because that is where railroad history starts changing the value of what looks like ordinary brass. Let me be straight with you first. Most rusty padlocks are not treasures. Plenty of anonymous locks sell for very little. The high values belong to the right categories: railroad, express, figural, patented, premium British, or unusual handmade brass. That honesty matters because it is exactly why the rare ones are overlooked. People see a frozen shackle and a missing key and stop looking. And collectors turn the lock over and read the metal. That is also why I would never sell an unfamiliar lock at a yard sale before identifying it. And a dealer who sees generic hardware may offer generic hardware money. A collector who recognizes a scarce railroad, express, or patented piece may see an entirely different object. Quick favor, before we start opening these old mechanisms, if you like learning how to identify valuable antiques before somebody sells them for pocket change, subscribe to the channel. Every week, we break down makers, markings, patents, materials, and the small details that separate ordinary garage hardware from pieces serious collectors chase. And the next great find may already be hanging on your own wall. Now start with the fastest test in the hobby. Pick up the lock and rotate it slowly. Check the front, back, bottom, the shackle, and the little dust cover over the keyhole if it has one. Look for a stamped maker, logo, railroad abbreviation, company initials, patent language, city, or trademark. Use a flashlight from the side. Low angle light makes shallow letters cast shadows, and markings hidden under grime can suddenly appear. Clean dirt before you dismiss anything, but do not grind sand or polish the surface until you know what the marks mean. On an old lock, the stamp can matter more than the shine. Material is the next clue. Brass is especially desirable because it resists corrosion and develops an attractive patina. Solid brass generally carries more collector appeal than thin plated metal. Cast iron and steel are common, but genuinely old forged examples can still be important. Then there are locks with hand-worked brass, exposed wood, hammered, brushed, or handmade finishes. The best old handcrafted examples can move into roughly $800 to $1,000 or more, depending on who made them and what history they carry. Mechanism matters too. A warded lock is one of the oldest and simplest forms, using internal obstructions that only the correct key shape can pass. Lever locks use internal levers, and you may see markings such as 6 lever on collectible brass examples. A pancake or push key lock is flat and thin, often with a push key design, and it is a classic American form. Combination locks use wheels or discs instead of a conventional keyhole, and early examples are increasingly sought. A push button and steel cable locks are generally newer and usually less collectible. Then study the shackle and keyhole. A long shackle, closed shackle, unusual curve, or heavy forging can help identify the pattern. A hinged dust cover over the keyhole is especially common on older brass and railroad locks. Open it carefully. Do not force it if rusted. Historical provenance is one of the biggest value multipliers in American padlock collecting. Railroad locks may carry PRR for Pennsylvania Railroad, B&O, SP for Southern Pacific, Santa Fe, or AT and SF, DNR, GRR, Union Pacific, or another company abbreviation. Switch locks used on railroad switches are a classic collecting category. Express company locks are even more exciting, especially Wells Fargo and company markings such as W, F, and Co. Story or figural locks use animals, scenes, coats of arms, or decorative reliefs on the body. These cross from hardware into decorative folk collecting. Condition changes the number, intact brass, readable marks, a working mechanism, good spring tension in the shackle, and the original key all help. Chips, cracks, breaks, and heavy corrosion can knock roughly 10 to 15% or more off value depending on severity. A frozen shackle hurts. Missing the key hurts too, although a rare lock can still be valuable without it. There's one more clue people overlook: the relationship between wear and the story stamped on the lock. A railroad lock that supposedly worked outdoors for decades should show believable wear around the shackle, keyhole, edges, and dust cover. An express lock with a perfectly sharp hallmark, artificial darkening, and no matching wear deserves suspicion. Patina should make sense across the whole object. Also keep any key that came with the lock. Original keys are separated in junk drawers, and reuniting one with the correct lock can improve identification and value. Never force a key into a frozen mechanism. Patience is cheaper than snapping a key inside a collectible lock. If you find several locks from the same estate, keep them together until you understand the group. A railroad employee or express agent may have left a cluster whose provenance becomes clearer when the pieces remain associated. Number 10 is the common six-lever or pancake brass padlock, the base of the whole countdown. Look for a brass body, a flatter rounded pancake profile, lever mechanism, and preferably a stamped manufacturer. A typical common example may sell around $37. That is not big money, but it teaches the first rule. A maker stamp is what moves a lock from anonymous hardware into something you can research. Compare two similar brass locks. One is blank. The other carries a recognizable company name, a lever count, and an original key. The second one deserves far more attention. This is also where you should learn not to confuse age with dirt. A modern padlock can look old if it's spent 20 years in a wet shed. Read the mechanism and marks before you date it. Number 9 is Yale in Town, or Yale. Look for Yale in Town, patent-related markings, and sometimes more elaborate mechanical designs than the cheap utility locks people associate with the name today. Yale is one of the most recognizable lock names in the world, and early examples attract collectors because the company sits at the heart of lock development history. Common models may stay in the tens of dollars, while unusual early or railroad-related Yale locks can reach into the hundreds. Study the exact logo, body shape, dust cover, shackle mechanism, and any patent information. A later mass-produced Yale is not the same object as an early specialized lock. Number 8 is the Winchester six-lever padlock. Yes, the same Winchester name famous for firearms appeared on padlocks, and that crossover creates immediate collector interest. Look for Winchester stamped clearly on the body, often paired with a six-lever mechanism and sometimes accompanied by original keys. These are considered hard to find compared with common utility padlocks. Exact prices vary, but clean examples with the key and strong markings can bring a significant premium over ordinary brass locks. The reason is not just the mechanism. It is the combination of a famous American brand, limited survival, and the appeal to both lock collectors and Winchester collectors. If you found one in a grandfather's cabinet, would you think gun company or hardware company first? Tell me below, because crossover collectibles are exactly where unexpected demand comes from. Number 7 is Eagle Lock Company of Terryville, Connecticut. Look for Eagle and study the body shape. Eagle produced classic American brass locks in heart, pancake, and six-lever forms, and the company is deeply tied to 19th century lock manufacturing. Values range from the tens into the hundreds depending on model, rarity, material, condition, and whether the key survives. The common name does not guarantee a premium, but an unusual eagle pattern with crisp markings and original key is worth researching carefully. Check the hinges on any dust cover, the shackle tension, and the wear around the keyhole. Heavy polishing can make a lock look prettier while erasing the very patina collectors want. Number 6 is Miller Lock Company Champion and Frame, a group of names you should know because they appear on collectible utility and railroad-related locks. Look for Miller Lock CO Champion or Frame, sometimes with a date such as 1921. Many are brass or steel lever locks. Their collector appeal rises sharply when the lock can be connected to railroad service, an identifiable company, or a scarce pattern. Common examples may stay modest, but documented railroad-related pieces move higher because provenance changes the category. This is where you stop asking only, who made it? And start asking, Who used it? A lock stamped by a railroad or transportation company carries a second collecting audience. Number 5 is the antique combination lock. Look for old numbered wheels, discs, or rotating elements, and in many cases, no normal keyhole at all. Construction may be brass, iron, or steel, and the older examples can feel surprisingly heavy and mechanical compared with modern school locker combinations. Early combination locks are in demand because collectors enjoy both the engineering and the visual complexity. Common ones can remain affordable, while rare early mechanisms, unusual makers, and strong condition bring a premium. Do not assume a combination lock is modern just because it has no key. Study the body, wheel style, maker patents, and materials. If the dial spins loosely because internal parts are missing, that matters. Right? If it operates smoothly and still carries original markings, that helps. Before we move into the top 4, remember the rule that protects you from bad assumptions. Maker plus mechanism plus material plus provenance plus condition. No single feature makes the lock valuable. But when several strong clues line up, that is when an ordinary garage object becomes a serious collector piece. Number 4 is the story or figural padlock, and this is where the lock stops looking like plain hardware and starts behaving like folk art. Look for a body decorated with an animal, human figure, coat of arms, scene, symbol, or raised relief. Some examples were painted, and surviving original color can add interest when it is genuine. The value comes from the combination of rarity, visual appeal, maker, age, material, and condition. Better figural locks can move from the hundreds upward, and unusual subjects can attract collectors who do not normally buy locks at all. Study the casting carefully. Soft details, suspiciously fresh seams, or an artificial finish can point toward a later reproduction. Now, number 3 is the railroad switch lock, one of the most important American categories in the entire hobby. Turn the lock over and look for a railroad name or abbreviation. PRR points toward Pennsylvania Railroad. B&O is Baltimore and Ohio. SP can indicate Southern Pacific. Santa Fe or AT and SF points toward Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe. DNR-GRR connects with Denver and Rio Grande Railroad, and Union Pacific speaks for itself. Then look for makers such as Adlake, Climax, including JHW Climax, Dayton, or Bohannon. Wilson Bohannon is another name worth knowing. Many railroad locks use heavy brass or steel bodies and a hinge dust cover protecting the keyhole. Switch locks were working security devices used around railroad infrastructure, and that provenance is what turns them into more than hardware. Common railroad locks can sell from the tens into the hundreds, while scarcer railroads, early makers, unusual patterns, and documented pieces can go much higher. A collector of one railroad may pay more for the exact company he needs than a general lock collector would. That is why I would never sell a marked switch lock until I knew the railroad, maker, mechanism, and whether the key belonged with it. If you found PRR or Santa Fe under the grime tonight, which one would you rather keep? Tell me below. Number 2 is the Great British Prestige category, especially Brahma and Chubb. Look for Brahma on the body or mechanism, and for Chubb, sometimes accompanied by the familiar fish logo associated with the maker. These names belong to major chapters in British lock history, and authentic early examples are prized for engineering, craftsmanship, and reputation. Values for strong antique examples can move into the hundreds and upward depending on age, model, originality, and condition. A plain modern lock bearing a famous name is not the same thing as an early collectible example, so research the exact mark and construction. If an old Brahma or Chubb still has its correct key and works properly, that completeness can matter substantially. Number 1 is the Express Company lock, especially Wells Fargo and Company, along with the broader class of rare hand-worked antique brass locks that sit at the top of the market. Look for WF & Co., Wells Fargo & Co., or another Express Company marking. These locks attract attention because they connect directly with 19th century transportation, valuables, the American West, and the security systems that protected money and cargo moving across long distances. A genuine Wells Fargo-related lock is not simply a brass padlock with romantic lettering. The stamp, construction, wear, mechanism, material, and provenance all need to make historical sense. Old examples may be cast or forged in substantial brass with carefully worked shackles and lever mechanisms. Hand-finished brass locks with hammered, brushed, or individually worked surfaces can be valuable even outside Wells Fargo when the age, maker, and rarity are right. At the high end, rare express locks and exceptional handmade brass examples can move from several $100s to around $3,000 in the best cases. That is why this is the never sell these category. But this is also the category where reproductions and fantasy pieces demand the most caution. Wells Fargo is a famous name, so counterfeit or misleadingly marked locks exist. Do not authenticate one because the letters look old. Compare the hallmark style with documented originals. Study whether the patina is consistent across the body, shackle edges, dust cover, and stamped area. A fresh-looking stamp cut into an artificially aged body is a warning. Check the mechanism and construction against known period examples. And if the lock is potentially valuable, get specialist help before you sell it. Now let us turn the whole countdown into a method you can use in your own garage. First, rotate every old padlock and inspect all sides. Look at the body, shackle, bottom, keyhole, and dust cover. Write down every word, abbreviation, patent reference, city, or logo exactly as it appears. Do not guess that worn letters say Wells Fargo because you want them to. Photograph the marks under side lighting and from several angles. Second, identify the material. Solid brass is especially desirable, while cast iron and steel are common, but can still be collectible in early or specialized forms. Handmade brass, worked finishes, and unusual combinations with wood deserve more attention. Do not confuse brass plating with solid brass. Third, identify the mechanism. Is it warded, lever, 6-lever, pancake, push key combination, or something later such as push button or cable construction? A warded lock uses internal obstructions and an appropriately shaped key. A lever lock uses internal levers. A pancake push key lock has a flat American form and a key that operates through a push-style action. The combination lock uses wheels or discs. Fourth, study the shackle and keyhole. Closed shackles, long shackles, unusual bends, heavy forgings, and hinged dust covers can help identify purpose and period. Fifth, identify provenance. Railroad initials and express company markings can be more important than the maker alone. Write down PRR, B&O, SP, AT, and SFD, and RGRR, Union Pacific, or any unfamiliar letters. Then research the abbreviation instead of assuming it is a model number. A lock can have two identities at once: the company that manufactured it and the railroad that ordered or used it. That combination is often where collector demand grows. Sixth, inspect condition without trying to make the lock look new. Check the body for chips and cracks. Look for breaks, repairs, drilled keyways, replace shackles, and deep corrosion. Test the shackle gently. Good spring tension and a functioning mechanism help. If it is frozen, do not use brute force. Damage can reduce value roughly 10 to 15% or more, depending on what is broken and how rare the lock is. Missing the key generally reduces value, but do not assume a rare railroad or express lock is worthless without one. The original key is a bonus, not the only source of value. Seventh, keep any loose keys from the same garage or estate. Photograph their bows, bits, and markings. A key that looks unrelated may belong to a switch lock several drawers away. Do not file an old key to make it fit. Do not force a wrong key into a rare mechanism. Originality matters, and a broken key inside the lock creates a problem you did not have before. Eighth, verify authenticity. Railroad and express reproductions are real concerns. Check hallmark shape, letter spacing, casting quality, construction mechanism, wear, and patina together. A convincing fake can imitate one clue. It is harder to imitate the entire life history of a genuine working lock. Look for inconsistencies. A supposedly 19th century body paired with modern hardware, new-looking machine marks, or a mechanism that belongs to a much later design should slow you down. No single test proves authenticity. Ninth, check actual market results. Use completed eBay listings in the sold filter, searching maker plus type, railroad, or express company. Search Yale Railroad Lock, Winchester 6-lever, Eagle Pancake, Frame Railroad, Adlake Switch Lock, Chubby Padlock, Brahma Padlock, or the exact abbreviation you found. Do not compare a common lock to the highest priced example merely because the bodies look similar. Matchmaker, mechanism, railroad, or company material, key status, and condition as closely as possible. Then use specialized antique padlock and railroad lock reference sites, old collections, auction archives, and maker databases to identify rare patterns. For serious pieces, contact an antique lock dealer, railroad memorabilia specialist, or qualified appraiser before selling. And the difference between a general antiques buyer and a specialist can be knowledge, not honesty. Right? A generalist may simply not know the subcategory. That brings us to the promise in the title: never sell these before you know what you have. I do not mean nobody should ever sell an antique padlock. I mean, do not sell a rare category blind. Railroad, express, story, premium British, and unusual handmade locks are pieces of transportation, industrial, and American history. Their collector markets exist because the hardware survived the work it was built to do. A Wells Fargo lock can represent the movement of valuables. A switch lock can represent the daily operation of a railroad. A figural lock can preserve decorative casting. A Brahma or Chubb can represent important lock engineering. Once a rare piece leaves the family for $20 at a yard sale, discovering its history afterward does not bring it back. That is the real meaning of never sell these. Identify first, research second, value third, sell only after you understand the object, and remember the calibration that keeps all of this honest. Most common old padlocks are not expensive. $15 to $40 is normal territory for many ordinary examples. A common brass 6-lever or pancake might be around $37. Better branded, unusual, railroad, figural, British, express, or handmade examples can move into hundreds, and the exceptional top categories can reach into the thousands. So values vary with maker, mechanism, material, provenance, condition, rarity, and whether the original key survives. Sale and auction numbers are evidence, not guarantees. The same maker can produce a common lock and a scarce one. So tonight, now check the nails on the garage wall, the coffee cans, the drawer under the workbench, and the old farm boxes nobody opens anymore. Rotate every lock, read the body, lift the dust cover, check the shackle, look for Yale, Winchester, Eagle, Miller, Champion Frame, Adlake, Climax, Bohannon, Brahma, Chubb, W.F. & Co., and every railroad abbreviation you do not recognize. Also research Corbin, Slaymaker, Keen Cutter, or E.C. Simmons, Elm City, Century Sargent, German ABUs, Finnish Abloy, and older Scandinavian or European handmade locks when they appear. None is automatically valuable, but each can open a research trail. Which mark would make you stop everything? A railroad abbreviation, a Chubbfish logo, or W.F. & Co.? Tell me below. Value hides in plain sight, and sometimes it has been hanging from the same rusty nail for 50 years.